Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. The largest opposition grouping in Poland, the conservative Law and Justice Party, presented its presidential candidate today. Yesterday, the largest party in the ruling coalition did the same. More on that in a moment, but first let's take a look at the headlines. The first round of presidential elections in Romania has just come to an end. Bucharest's support for Ukraine is at stake. Russians have kidnapped thousands of children from Ukraine and now they are training them to fight against their own country. And the new European Commission will have one clear priority: defense and the bloc's security. We have a Polish war. We need an independent candidate for president, says Jarosław Kaczyński, leader of Law and Justice, the biggest Polish opposition party. Karol Nawrocki, president of the Institute of National Remembrance, will be its candidate in the next year's presidential elections. Kazimierz Łysiak reports from Kraków.
It is official. Karol Nawrocki will be the candidate of the Law and Justice Party in the 2025 presidential election. He was announced by historian Andrzej Nowak in the building behind me on Sunday in Krakow.
I have the honor on the behalf of the Citizens Support Committee to propose the candidacy of Karol Nawrocki.
Up until the last second, there was a heated debate inside the Law and Justice Party whether to go with the former Minister of Education, hardline Przemysław Czarnek. In the end, the party decided to go with unaffiliated Dr. Karol Nawrocki, who is the president of the largest historical institute in Poland, the Institute of National Remembrance. In his spare time, he is a boxer and he came out on stage on Sunday to the tune of Rocky Balboa.
I believe that today we are beginning the history of another victory. I believe in this victory and I believe in Poland.
The leader of the Conservative Law and Justice Party came out here on stage and said that the party had to go with a moderate candidate because of, as he said, a war taking place in Poland.
Today we are in a special situation. We have a situation that can unfortunately be described as an internal war, a Polish war.
Members of the Law and Justice Party are convinced that Dr. Karol Nawrocki can go all the way and beat Rafał Trzaskowski, the candidate of the biggest ruling coalition party, the Civic Coalition.
Mr. Nawrocki presented himself perfectly. He is a patriot and has done a lot of good.
And the stakes are high for the Conservative camp, as the Law and Justice Party lost the parliamentary elections in late 2023 to the more centre-liberal ruling coalition. While the incumbent president Andrzej Duda hails from the Law and Justice, his term of office runs out in August next year. This is basically the Conservative camp's last opportunity in the next several years to have at least some form of control over the executive branch in Poland. From Krakow, TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiak.
With new developments coming in each day, let's now take a closer look at the upcoming 2025 Polish presidential elections.
Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski has become the official candidate for Poland's Civic Coalition. Now, let's take a deeper dive into the makeup of the ruling coalition. The ruling coalition contains three main groups: Civic Platform, the Third Way and the Left. With Civic Coalition's nomination out of the way, the other coalition parties are expected to announce their candidates in early 2025. Szymon Hołownia, the leader of one of the parties in the ruling coalition and the Speaker of the lower house of parliament, has already announced that he is running for president. From the opposition parties, the right-wing Confederation Party nominated Sławomir Mencen. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He has the right to veto, but conducts foreign policy in cooperation with the government.
The first round of Romania's presidential elections was held on Sunday. 13 candidates competed for the office, among them the current Prime Minister, Marcel Ciolacu. The vote is of paramount importance to the security of the whole region. Zuzanna Jurek reports.
More than a dozen candidates faced off in the first round on Sunday. The strongest support in the polls was enjoyed by Marcel Ciolacu, incumbent Prime Minister and leader of the centre-left Social Democratic Party, and George Simion, leader of the right-wing Alliance for the Union of Romanians party. For experts, at the heart of this election is the future political orientation of Romania.
A lot of protest votes. So even in the presence of attempts to rally the parties behind a single candidate, we would have still had quite a massive protest vote. Some of it is in favor of Simion, seen as an anti-establishment person. The other is in support of somebody who sort of shot out of the blue, Călin Georgescu, an even more radical extremist candidate with views that are reminiscent of Romania's fascist past.
Opinion polls suggested that the race would be a close call, with key issues of this election centered around Romania's integration into multilateral institutions. The incumbent Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu platformed on a pro-European integrationist policy. Right-wing George Simion is an outspoken critic of the EU bureaucracy, aligning himself with fellow dissenters. Italy's Giorgia Meloni and Hungary's Viktor Orban. Simion's most controversial stances include reunification of pre-war Romanian territories, which encompasses Moldova. He opposes Holocaust education and is an outspoken supporter of President-elect Donald Trump. For experts, George Simion's candidacy casts uncertainty over a united pro-Ukrainian front in the region.
In many ways, he is somebody that not only incorporates the narrative of the Kremlin, but also develops it around a larger anti-Western, anti-European Union, anti-NATO, I would call it schedule or, a platform.
One thing is certain, the elections in Romania reflect a broader right-wing anti-establishment wave across global democracies.
Under the circumstances in our region and everywhere, with the election of Donald Trump, with Viktor Orban being stronger and stronger a voice, I think that's the threat that all Romanians are feeling, that if the radical parties become a more influential force, even if they don't have the necessarily the country leadership, this is going to make things much more difficult in internal politics.
The two candidates who will secure the most votes in Sunday's elections will face off in the second round on December 8th. Not long before that, Romanians will go to the polls on December 1st to vote in their next parliament.
Brussels is charting an ambitious course as Ursula von der Leyen's new commissioners will soon take office with a clear mission to fortify Europe's defence. Amid rising global tensions, the EU wants to focus on strategic autonomy and security like never before. This shift signals a bid for a stronger Europe on the world stage. Our European Affairs correspondent, Sasha Farbach, has more.
As the European Union recently marked 1,000 days of Russian aggression in Ukraine, the security of the EU has never been more in the spotlight. In particular, with the election of Donald Trump, the bloc will have to step up and do more for its own defense. Kyiv is hopeful that Europe will heed its message in these uncertain times.
It is important moment now, because there is a transition in the EU, in Europe, transition in the US. Our enemy is looking for this moment to use it, and we are calling our partners to act now, to act in a bold and resolute way.
The new European commissioners, the EU's executive team led by Ursula von der Leyen, will hit the ground running, likely December 1st, building up Europe's industrial capacity and focusing also on defense capabilities as urgent priorities. With the selection of Estonia's Kaja Kallas and Lithuania's Andrius Kubilius, Central and Eastern Europe has emerged as a key driver of the EU's defense agenda. Their frontline perspective on the Russian threat is reshaping Europe's security priorities, pushing for greater military support and resilience in the region.
Defense, security, especially cooperation, Central Europe will be one of the most important topic in her agenda.
A report for the Commission released recently by Finland's former president Sauli Niinistö underscores the urgency of a unified European defense strategy. It highlights vulnerabilities exposed by Russia's aggression, calling for stronger coordination, investment in military capabilities, while also calling on European citizens to be more resilient.
When people have a common threat that unites. And in Poland, I understand that security, peace are values which everybody will work for. I hope that the wake-up call is there, at least that much, that we can go further with the proposals and finding a way to give an answer to those people who are worried. And those people, there are more and more.
As the EU grapples with uncertain allies and the persistent threat from Russia, many challenges lie ahead. However, with fresh leadership in Brussels, the Niinistö report as a roadmap, as well as the momentum of Central Europe as Poland is due to take over the rotating Council presidency in January, the continent now faces a pivotal moment. The question is whether Europe can turn these ambitions into action, securing its place as a credible force in global defense, or risk falling short when it matters most.
Well, the French foreign minister calls for no limits in helping Ukraine, and the Kremlin wants to escalate the conflict by attacking the country with new hypersonic ballistic missiles. And so we're going now live to Kiev, to our correspondent Oskar Terzi. Good evening, Os. So we know that Ukraine has lost some 40% of the territory in Russia's Kursk region, but how is it doing in other sections of the front line?
Well, look, it's been another busy day for Ukraine's Air Force as 73 drones were fired by Russia over the territory of Ukraine, targeting 7 different regions of Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainian Air Force are claiming that 50 of those drones were intercepted. 12 of them were intercepted over the Kiev region, so a busy night for the Ukrainian Air Force around the capital of Kiev. Now, Zelensky addressed the people again today in his nightly address, calling for more help in the air defense region department from his partners, saying that they need to strengthen their air defense systems. They need more air defense systems. It is crucial to strengthen the protection of our skies, he said. So another call for more air defenses, as he said that Ukraine has been subjected to 800 glided aerial bombs by Russia this week, 460 drones, and of course, 20 missiles, including that new Oreshnik missile that caused so much concern in European capitals. So again, it's been a really, really busy week for Ukraine's air defense, and they are going to be very concerned heading into this winter period if they can't get the supplies, the ammunition that they need to keep making sure that those drones, those missiles are intercepted over the skies and don't reach their target destinations.
That was Oskar Terzi reporting from Kiev. Thank you so much, Os, and of course, stay safe. According to newly declassified US documents, the orders for the 2004 poisoning of then candidate and later Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko came directly from Moscow. Russia under Vladimir Putin has a long record of murder attempts on those who pose a threat to the regime, whether in Russia or outside its borders. Michael van Blomstein reports.
This was Viktor Yushchenko before his 24-dioxin poisoning. And this is him after. He survived and went on to become the Ukrainian president. The circumstances around his poisoning have never been fully cleared up, but there were strong suspicions.
Vladimir Putin himself gave the order for you to be poisoned.
I have an answer, but I cannot voice it.
Whether Putin directly ordered the poisoning is still unknown, but according to the classified documents obtained by the news service Bloomberg, Moscow had at least a hand in it.
We assess that the Russian government will continue to use its intelligence services and other loyal entities to assassinate suspected terrorists as well as individuals abroad whom it deems as threats to core national security interest or the security of President Vladimir Putin's regime.
Assassinations are a regular fixture in the autocrat's toolkit. A number of prominent enemies of the Kremlin have been brutally murdered. Journalist Anna Polikovskaya was shot in 2006 after criticizing the Chechen War. That same year, former spy Alexander Litvinenko died of radiation poisoning after being fed polonium in London. Opposition politician Boris Nemtsov was shot dead on a bridge in Moscow in 2015. Opposition figure Alexei Navalny survived an assassination attempt in 2020, only to die in captivity earlier this year. There have been many other attempts as well. A bystander died when Russian agents tried to kill a defected spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter in 2018 using a nerve agent. Moscow has denied their involvement in all these cases. In the case of Navalny, Putin even claimed that he was a part of a prisoners' exchange.
By undermining and even denying this kind of attacks they are actually creating more terror and more fear from who did this and why, and it can happen to everyone.
Prominent opposition leaders like Vladimir Kara-Murza and Ilya Ponomarev have faced attempts on their lives and have been forced into exile.
How difficult, then, is it to rally an opposition to Putin's regime from outside of the country?
It is exhausting, but it's not a question whether it's outside or inside. Look, the largest Russian revolution of 1917, which was led by Bolsheviks, which all lived in exile, right?
It is up to their host countries to protect opponents of Vladimir Putin from being killed, like they are in their home country.
Tens of thousands of Ukrainian children abducted from the occupied territories have been taken to Russia, where they face indoctrination and forced assimilation. These tragic events are part of a wild-scale policy that violates international laws and children's rights. Anastasia Anchenko reports.
Under the pretext of rehabilitation camps, vacations, evacuation from under-shelling or humanitarian missions, Russia has unlawfully and on a large scale deported and continues to deport children from the occupied territories of Ukraine. Over the course of 1,000 days of full-scale war, Russia has deported more than 19,500 Ukrainian children. Only about 1,000 Ukrainian children have been successfully returned home. This was reported by the Ukrainian Parliament's Commissioner for Human Rights, Dmytro Lubinets, on November 20th.
I think that the instruments that are used, they are too weak. Raising awareness is not enough. It's just words. Yes, everyone is talking about this, but there are no clear action taken towards, like the clear steps taken towards getting those children back.
The children remaining in Russia are subjected to so-called Russification.
The abduction of our children started under the pretext of vacations, medical treatment and education, but then they were handed over to Russian families with the aim of fully assimilating them into Russian propaganda and society. Releasing Ukrainian children is not easy. We are literally bringing back only a handful. Each child must essentially be torn from the claws of this three-headed dragon.
Psychologists working with children who were abducted and forcibly taken to Russia report that most of these children have experienced severe psychological trauma.
Deported children endured an act of combined violence. No one asked them for consent, and many were deceived in the process. They're unable to protect themselves and find themselves in a situation of complete uncertainty. For these children, separation from their parents is almost like death. Their recovery will be extremely difficult.
It is a violation of human rights and international law. It needs to be stopped. This is not right. It's not only a severe act of injustice, it is also considered to be cultural genocide.
In 2023, the European Parliament reported that up to 300,000 Ukrainian children may have been illegally deported to Russia since 2014, though the actual number could be higher.
The Slovakian government will establish a special commission to investigate the donation of military equipment to Ukraine under the previous administration. The current government alleges that the donations hurt the capacity of the Slovakian armed forces, endangering the country's security. Krzysztof Panek has this report.
The Slovakian Interior Minister has announced that his ministry will investigate the donations, calling for criminal charges for those responsible. The previous government's officials defend their decision, dismissing the allegations as politically motivated.
The understanding of the criticality of the situation in Ukraine, as it also has an influence on the security and defense of Slovakia. Of course, it was a reaction to Russia's illegal and illegitimate aggression against Ukraine. And the framework was the United Nations Charter that gives Ukraine the right to organize its own self-defense.
The current government, led by Robert Fico, took power in October of last year. It made significant changes to the country's foreign policy, maintaining much less friendly relations with Kyiv, taking a line similar to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Donations of military aid to Ukraine were stopped, although commercial sales of Slovak arms continue. Fico has also opposed Ukraine's membership in NATO.
As long as I am the Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic, I will lead the members of the National Council, whom I, as party leader, have under political control to never agree with Ukraine's membership in NATO, because it is just as good as the basis of the Third World War.
Fico's government alleges that the donations negatively affected the capabilities of the Slovak armed forces and therefore the security of the country. It also alleges that violations of procedures took place. The previous administration has disputed this. Like in the case of many formerly Soviet-aligned NATO member states, Slovakia's military aid to Ukraine consisted mostly of old Soviet weapons. These are largely being phased out and replaced by more modern systems using NATO standards.
The equipment that Slovakia has donated to Ukraine were always considered and then later donated in close cooperation with the Slovak military. Everything that Slovakia donated was done basically with the consent and also sometimes at the proposal of the Slovak military, simply because the equipment that we had either could not be maintained or was not prospective to have for the Slovak armed forces.
Before the military aid was stopped, Slovakia gave Ukraine arms worth some €700 million, providing crucial support to the embattled nation.
This Sunday marked the beginning of a true election marathon for Romanians, as they are not only choosing the country's new president, but will also vote in parliamentary elections next weekend. So who will shape Bucharest's politics in the next few years, and how can it impact the security of the whole region, as Romania is one of NATO's eastern flank members? And to discuss it, we're joined by Eusebiu Slavitescu, a former Romanian diplomat. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
And first of all, we have early results coming from Romania, and those are pretty unexpected.
Well, for someone who has chasing these elections for the past couple of weeks, let me tell you, theirs are shocking for myself, and I think for pretty much everyone.
So let's just tell our viewers it's so far, as those are really very early exit polls. 25% for Ciolacu, 18% for Lasconi, and in the third place we have Georgescu. So, a bit of a shocker.
A bit of a shocker. Why is it a shocker? Because so far we believed, all the polls were giving the far-right nationalist George Simeon as the second one in the runoff. It was pretty much a done deal up until a very few days when a huge scandal, corruption scandal, links the current prime minister, the social democrat, the first one with 25%, to these scandals, and it links them in a pretty safe way. It's difficult for him to surf around that. So I'm assuming this is something that played out. But this guy that we've seen in third, Călin Georgescu, up until a couple of hours ago, he was only given in the polls with 6, 7, 8%, and now we're seeing 16%.
So what happened? could this just be, some mistake, and it can all change by the morning tomorrow, or has something?
So we might have these exit polls are very early. They do not take into consideration the diaspora, the Romanian diaspora, who is huge in Europe. We have 1.5 million in Italy, 1.3 were around in Spain. We have in Germany a huge, France, and so on and so forth, and also in Moldova a lot of it. So these numbers, they go up to 10% of the overall results, so we might see a change. What we know so far, and I know this for many of my friends in diaspora.
Who will that diaspora vote for?
That's the thing. Nobody really knows, but so far everybody, it's been 25 minutes now since we have this result, and everybody's on this guy. It seems that he has led an enormous and very smart campaign on TikTok, and only on TikTok. Nothing on TV, nothing on the other social network. On TikTok, I personally don't have TikTok, so I haven't been following him. But be assured, tonight,
therefore,
tomorrow,
I guess he appeals to the younger generation, right?
Exactly, to the younger generation, also to the generation who fled Romania 15, 20 years ago to Germany, to Spain, to France. And for some reason, they see in him somebody who speaks very patriotic, who speaks. But let me tell you, this Călin Georgescu is, let me be elegant, borderline fascist. He's pro-Russia propaganda aligned fully. He's against Ukraine. He's against giving any type of help to the Ukrainians during these very difficult 3 years of fight. He says about himself, and I just saw that before I came here, that he's the chosen one from God. So you see, this is the language he plays with. Well, probably tomorrow everybody will wake up to a lot of analysis and how was it possible, because the danger right here is 16% him, 15 other percent George Simeon, who was supposed to be in the second round. They go close to 30 something, and that's very worrisome.
Now, precisely next week there will be general elections in Romania. Now, could these two gentlemen form some sort of an alliance?
Well, couple of months ago, this gentleman used to be the nominated prime minister of Georgia, Simeon. Something happened, apparently, not sure what. Everything is possible. If they shake hands, we risk of having next the 1st of December the biggest political party in Romania, as a political party who is pro-Russia, who is against NATO, who is against EU, he's against all of these values that we have had and we have held so dearly so far.
Right. Now, talking about the far right, one of the most controversial ideas of George Simeon, the person who didn't make it, apparently.
But he's the main figure.
As you said, he is the main figure of Romania's far right. Now, one of his ideas was to unify Romania with Moldova. Now, is such a narrative appealing to voters in Romania, and is it even realistic?
At this point, it's not. By the way, George Simeon, he is forbidden to enter the Moldovan territory and the Ukrainian territory. And it has been so for a few years. For someone who wants to be the president of Romania, Ukraine and Moldova right now, well, at least in our current foreign policy, they are enormous. They matter to us, especially Moldova, very much so. So this is also very weird. He was forbidden to enter these countries because of his unionist sort of political campaigns that he's run, challenging the Ukrainian territorial integrity, challenging Moldova territorial integrity, and all of those. But to answer your question, right now in Romania, this unionist speech is not really up to date. Nobody really talks about it.
Only a few minutes ago, we've heard a material about Slovakia. And, well, already Slovakia and Hungary are opposing any sort of military aid to Ukraine. Now, if Romania was to join the club, what would it mean for the security of the whole region, as a matter of fact?
Well, to be honest with you, this actually was the first question that I wanted to get my answer tonight. Will we join these countries that you just mentioned, being sort of a, maybe not straight on pro-Russia, but our, Slovakia, for example, a lot of these were Hungary. So I'm guessing we are not. Well, this is me just giving you a little bit of a, I think the next round will be won by this Elena Lasconi. Traditionally in Romania, the Social Democrat always gets into the second round because they have this huge and enormous party machine behind. It's the biggest political party. And also a lot of former communist nomenclatura part of it. And that's why in all of the second round, the runoff, the right and the center somehow managed to get together and to overcome. So I'm expecting the same thing in 2 weeks from now.
We'll see. We'll see. Definitely very interesting next 2 weeks in Romania. Eusebius Slavitescu, former Romanian diplomat, was our guest this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching. That is all for now, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.